Welcome to Kidney Cancer Unfiltered. I'm your host, Anna Maria Scaccia. Today I'm speaking with Mallory Foxx about her experience as a young Black woman with kidney cancer. Mallory shares why self-advocacy is so important, especially in the Black community, and how she's built a support system both online and in real life. Her story is about strength, community, and the power of standing up for yourself. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. Well, Mallory, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. For our listeners who may not be aware of your story, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. My name is Mallory, and I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have two boys, ages 12 and 7, and I have been married to my husband going on 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in September. So a little bit about my journey with the whole big C is what I like to call it. I started noticing it was last year around April. I just wasn't feeling very well. And of course, it's because of the kids, they're in school, blah, blah, blah. But I started noticing that every time I ate something that I would just throw up. And I was like, okay, this isn't really normal. Like, what is going on? Let me, call my doctor. So thank goodness I have access to Teladoc. And I am a huge advocate for Teladoc because I wasn't able to go into the provider's office, into my regular practitioner to see anyone. They didn't have any availability because for some reason in Charlotte, we were dealing with a surge of COVID, flu, and strep throat. So Oof. Yeah, it was like a trifecta, so to speak. So I said, okay. I said, so what is your next available appointment? And they said September. And I said, yeah, no, this is not going to work. So I reached out to Teladoc, and the practitioner that I spoke with, she connected with me with a gastroenterologist. And so I was like, okay, never been to the gastroenterologist, didn't even know what they did. So I was like, okay, let's go see what's going on there. So I went to see my gastroenterologist and went through various tests. And he ordered, for some reason or another, he said, well, let me look at your spleen just to make sure that it's okay and it's kind of functioning right. So I'm saying, okay. So I went to go get a ultrasound. And when I went to go get the ultrasound, my ultrasound tech was super, super nice. And she told me, she was like, she just kept prodding, really getting deep in there. And I said, okay, is everything okay? What's going on? And she was like, I see something. She said, can you turn to the side? Now, my silly self was like, okay, where do you see something? Right? What do you mean you see something? And she said, it's on your kidney. And I said, oh, okay. She said, but it's really small. It could just be my machine, but I'm going to order more imaging just to make sure. And so I said, okay. So my doctor Intel then called me and was like, yeah, we want to look at that spot because it just looks really odd. So we're going to schedule you for an MRI. Okay, great. I've never done one before. I can cross off my checklist. I went to get my MRI. It was the scariest experience of my life.
Oh my God, yes.
I recommend 1 out of 5 on Yelp. I'm
right.
Super scared, but I was in the best care possible. My nurses there and the techs were amazing and made me feel very, very comfortable. So I can remember the tech telling me, when you go home, don't look at your results, don't open anything, just let your doctor explain what he needs to explain. She said, the first thing she said was, don't Google, don't WebMD it, just go home and relax. I'm like, okay, that's kind of odd that she would say that. And I asked my husband, I said, did you hear her say that? And he was like, yeah, well, we're not going to worry about it. We're going to let, the doctor kind of talk to you about it. So I'm like, okay, can't be that bad. It is so crazy how fast you can get results for anything.
Yeah.
Because by the time I got home, and we live uptown Charlotte, so the hospital is really like a center of uptown. And when we got home, I already had my results. And I'm like, okay, let me look and see, why she was so concerned. And I saw renal cell carcinoma.
Ugh.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that must be something, what is that? Like, let me look at it. So I started doing my research and I was like, well, that can't be what that is, because we, knowing this disease and knowing this cancer, it affects Caucasian males over the age of 70 that have smoked or been around smoke, all that good jazz. So I'm like, okay, I'm a 37-year-old African American female. I do not smoke. I'm pretty healthy. Like, so, that can't be right. So I, talked to my husband and he was just like, we're not going to stress. We're going to figure it out and let the doctor talk to us. So I'm like, okay. So I went about, business as normal. Went to work the next day. And I remember at 10:15 a.m. on April 15th is when I got the news that I had cell carcinoma. And my heart just sunk because I'm like, that can't, I said, that's not right. That can't be possible. I am a African American female. Like, I'm telling my doctor all of this. And he was like, Miss Foxx, I know, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, don't tell me you're sorry, because I'm fine. I feel fine. What do you mean cancer?
Yeah.
And I said, I remember asking him, is there a cure? He was like, well, yeah, your mass is only about 2.5 centimeters in diameter. And I said, okay, what are my options as far as treatment? Can this be removed? And he said, well, I am your gastroenterologist. I can't remove it, but I'm going to send you to your other doctor, your urologist. And I said, okay. And I said, well, is this something that I need to be alarmed about? Do I need to, start having conversations with family? Because I tell people, when you hear the word cancer, you always think worst case scenario. You're always thinking that, it's a death sentence. It's oh my gosh, you're gonna like the scariest of the scariest outcomes. And I can remember just saying, like, God, thank you. Thank you for, my doctors, and thank you for my support system, and thank you for the doctors that actually listened to me and that actually took the time to look at imaging and see this little small mass that, some people could have just, wrote off and was like, oh, it's not nothing. It's nothing. So I just went on with business as normal and I went back to work. Oddly enough, after I had a huge crying fest and just talked to God, and I was like, okay, Lord, this is so funny. Like,
yeah, right.
What now? But I did have to take a moment to kind of let everything sink in. And I remember standing in the shower and I was like, wow, like I got cancer, like me, like I never thought that I would say those words. I never thought that I would have that experience. It was a really, kind of moment. But to me, life just went on. Like, it just kept going for me. I am a contestant. I'm a pageant contestant. And I was preparing for a national title. And so me and my husband sat down and he was like, well, what do you want to do? With your competition, you've been working so hard. I don't want you to stress out. Like, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm going to keep going. I've come this far. Like, we need to talk to the doctor and figure out kind of what, our plans are and what we're going to do. And so that I did. Like I said, things went really, really quickly. And it's like I didn't have time to kind of worry about it. I knew what was going on. I would just listen to my body when I was tired or I needed to kind of get rest. I would kind of dip off. I didn't really tell a lot of people at work. I didn't tell any of my competitors. I just didn't make it a highlight of my life at that point. And so I went on to my competition and won. And then about a week later, I was going for my partial nephrectomy. And that was in November of last year. And so now I had my first scan back in February. And I am now on the other side and I am cancer free.
Yay.
I do still have to do scans and all
Yeah.
that good stuff. Follow up with my regular doctor. I still see my urologist. I tell people that I'm on probation, and they're like, "Oh my God, what did you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just had a little cancer." And they're like, "That's what?" But it is just it. This past like year, 2 years almost has been the wildest time of my life. But I also tell people it's been like a blessing in disguise, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because I was a person that just go, go, go and just wanted to do this, wanted to do this. I wasn't really taking care of myself until I had to actually take care of myself. And I tell a lot of people, I've ran into a lot of people that has had similar stories as
Yeah.
myself. And I tell them, I'm like, listen, you have to not only listen to your body, but you also have to be the biggest advocate for yourself. Not just as an African American woman, as a woman in
Yeah.
general, like as a young woman. I'm only 37, and I don't know where this came from, but I'm just really, really thankful that I have not only organizations such as KCA, but my family and just people that are super, super supportive and give me all the knowledge and the resources that I need to not only advocate, but let people know that there is hope on the other side.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You touched on so many things I wanted to touch on. First of all, I wanted to say congratulations on being cancer free. That is amazing.
Thank you.
And I
Thank you.
That is amazing news, and I'm so happy for you. But I actually wanted to ask how the first year of survivorship has gone since, like, not even just the diagnosis, but the week of the surgery. Because I was gonna also ask, like, you won Miss Black International Ambassador, and then a week
Yeah.
later you had half of your kidney removed. Like that, like I would say in 7 days your life has like changed.
I'm telling you, like it has been like I think the first year for me, as far as like the surviving this whole ordeal, it's really given me a time to not only reflect, but just understand like cancer is not a one size fits all kind of
Hmm.
diagnosis. And for the longest, I was just very ignorant to what cancer was and where, how it starts and all that jazz. Like, I just didn't know because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there's ovarian cancer, there's breast cancer, there's colon cancer. That's it. But I didn't understand the different types. There are hundreds of
Hmm.
types of different cancers. And like I said, it is not a one size fits all kind of thing. And there are so many people. It's crazy because kidney cancer is on the rise for so many people.
Yeah.
And it's oddly enough, there are no symptoms. No symptoms. That's what I was told. And I'm like, well, that's crazy because I had all these crazy symptoms and I knew something was I knew
Yeah.
something wasn't right. But just this whole year, I have just really had a chance to just say, "Oh my God, I really beat that! Like I can do
Yeah.
anything." Like like I still to this day, I'm like, I had like cancer, like the
Hmm.
big C, and I was able to overcome it. So it's been a challenge. Some days are better than most. I can say honestly. Um, I do experience some type of physical pain as far as incisions are
Yeah.
concerned, and I am not fully healed from my partial nephrectomy. I still have a good bit of my kidney, and my nephrectomy was done on my right side, so I have a lot of issues on that right side, but I'm slowly recovering, slowly getting back to working out things that I love. I just don't want it to stop me, to be
Yeah.
honest, and I don't want it to define me, to be honest.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I did want to go. Oh, you had said something that when you just said it, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And now I just can't remember it. But when you said that, like the different type of cancers, it was I had like the thought too when I was diagnosed. I'm like, Okay, out of all the cancers, kidney cancer, like that's the thing. Oh, that's what he's it's the symptoms. So I remember like I had really bad like lower back pain and like my flank area.
Hmm.
And because of other health issues I had, I was like, okay, maybe it's just because of that. And when I
Yeah.
told my oncologist, I'm like, well, I used to have like a lot of pain there. He's like, oh yeah, maybe that was connected. I'm like, okay, I had pain there before the surgery, and then I stopped having pain after the surgery. I'm pretty sure it's because my tumor was there. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Like, don't. So I totally get it, what you were saying about that. But I want one thing that I was reading your story online,
Hmm.
talked a lot about advocacy, and you talked about advocacy in your here now too, and self-advocacy, and it's important. And so I want you to talk more about like why it was so important for you to advocate for your health, and not just
Hmm.
advocating for your health, but the challenges that maybe that you were running into that made you have to even advocate like further.
I would have to say I'm one of the lucky ones, to be honest. Going through this whole advocacy journey, I have met so many people that have ran into issues of age restriction. And it's really scary because, our insurance loves to go by, oh, you have to be 40 to get this scan. You have to be,
Hmm.
52 to get this scan. To me, a scan should be universal. If,
Yes.
even now, especially with what we're eating, what we're, our environment, things of that, everything that we're being exposed to is a risk factor.
Hmm.
So I hate an age restriction because again, I can say it all day long. I am 37. When I read about renal cell carcinoma, it affects people that are in their 70s or later. That's a huge gap. So
Hmm.
I think that would be something that I would really like to say, like, let's get rid of that, because I don't think it should be like you can't tell cancer, oh, you can't affect that person till they're 40. And then after that, you just go on and do your thing.
No,
So
you're like, this is a conversation I have with people all, not to cut you off, but that is like
no,
a
you're good.
conversation I have with people all the time about like about scans like that. Cause I was
Mhm.
37 when I was diagnosed, and that was 3 years ago. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, again, it's one of those things where it's like, if it wasn't because of my PCP going like, you should not have these type of kidney labs, I
Right.
probably would have never been checked. Right. And like,
Right.
yeah, go on. Sorry.
No,
It's
you're
a
good.
point that
Interrupt me
I like can
anytime.
go on a soapbox on. So please continue.
Yeah, so I tell a lot of people age restrictions should not be a factor. If you're running into that factor, or if you're running into that, you need to have a conversation with your doctor and be stern. Our
Mm.
doctors are like our politicians. We have to hold them accountable because we are going to them for a service, and we're going to them and saying, "Hey, there is something that is wrong. I know my body. I understand you've gone to school for a gajillion years, but I need you to listen to me and
Hmm.
understand that this is not normal for me." I knew that, the vomiting and the nausea was not something that I wanted to experience every single day of my life. Even drinking water made me nauseous. So I was like, this is just the weirdest thing that I'm experiencing. And other than that, I'm fine. So that's something that would just one of the obstacles that it just drives me insane because I want to be, I want, if I need a scan, I want to get a scan.
Yeah.
Like that should just be the bottom line of it. So I think that's something that I hear a lot. I ran into a young lady. She had a particular cancer, and she was telling me about how it's so hard for her to get an MRI because she's 32, but she had cancer. And I mean, it was at the point where it was like stage two, almost three, where, once you get into the threes and the fours, that's a very dangerous, that's kind of playing Russian roulette
Yep.
in a sense. So if that is one thing that I could like really just, tell people, like, who cares about your age? At this point, age is just the number when it comes down to doing something like that or getting a scan, so to speak. When I speak to people, a lot of times I tell them, like, I am a very vocal person. So if my doctor did not listen to me, then I was going to go to another one. And you have to, you're your biggest advocate, to be honest. And in this whole situation, I learned that. And I am very passionate about speaking your mind, speak up when it comes down to your health. So those are the two things that I like to tell people. Like, don't get intimidated when you go into the doctor's office and something is wrong. If you do feel that way, you can always call a friend, have someone to go with you, have your spouse to go with me. My spouse was even going to labs with me because he wanted to be in the know, and he wanted to know a lot of stuff. And also he wanted to share things that I might have forgotten. So that's two ways that I feel like we really need to kind of not only get the word out, but just continue to have conversations like this. And who knows who you'll help.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up your spouse, because I think having that support system when it comes to advocacy is so important. Because I was last year when I was going through my thyroid cancer treatment, like I was in a very like bad space. And if it weren't for my partner being there, like asking certain questions I didn't feel comfortable asking the doctor because of his like behavior, those questions
Right.
wouldn't have been asked. And not to take over my story, but it's like it's so
No.
important not to only be a self-advocate, but to have those people around you. And I wanted you to talk, I wanted to ask you more about your support system and kind of how not just your spouse and your son showed up, but just your friends, your family, people around you.
I I didn't know how big my village was until I needed my village. Not only with my husband and my babies, but my mom, my pageant sisters, again the KCA. Like, I had so many people that showed up for me and was like, listen, we don't care if you need us to come and sweep your floors, if you need us to run your errands, if you need to, have someone to take you to the doctor's office when your husband can't. I am here. And I am a person that's usually me. So it was really hard to kind of
Yeah.
like say, oh, I don't feel like it today. So can you do this for me? But just having that loving, supportive system, I really think that's one of the reasons why I was able to like say, you know what, we're gonna do this. We're gonna get it
Yeah.
done. So it's super important to have a very, very, very strong support system. Even my neighbors, like, we don't even get to talk like that because we all work crazy hours.
Yeah.
They were coming over with groceries and helping us give out candy at Halloween. Like, it was such an amazing time. And it just goes to show you that there are still amazing people in the
Yeah.
world. There are still people in the world that care. And I can never like thank the people who helped me enough. Like, it's just love. Like, so
Yeah.
that was something that really, really helped me so much, even to this day.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, it's support community. It goes such a long way. And speaking about community, I wanted to talk about your advocacy within the African American community. And I know you wrote about like the difficulty about, for African Americans to go to the doctor to check in on their health. And we know from research and studies that the disparities and the racism and the bias. So I want you
Yeah.
to talk more about your experience in advocacy, like the things that you're doing specifically to raise awareness, get people to the doctor, change the numbers.
Absolutely. So with my platform and being Miss Black International Ambassador, I have an amazing pageant director, an amazing pageant system. We oftentimes do a lot of live. I share my story. I can't tell you how many countless times that I've shared the story, as many times as I need to, because again, I didn't have a really, really hard time with doctors or, people like feeling like I wasn't heard. But I've heard so many people share their stories of, oh, I don't really think my doctor really did what they could have done, or I really felt like I was being rushed. And just to hear that, healthcare should just be something that is just so universal in America. We are the nation of the best of the best. So I feel like everyone should have that opportunity, and it shouldn't be because of your gender, your race, or anything of that nature. What I often do is I write legislation and say, listen, we are having disparities in certain communities. How can you bring certain things to communities that just can't get it? Like, how can you bring knowledge to communities who otherwise would have no clue how to get it? because a lot of people, it's crazy that a lot of people say, well, I just go to WebMD. And I'm like, WebMD is gonna be the first thing that kill you. Like you're gonna die.
Yes, yeah.
So it is me taking my advocacy to another level and actually, like I said, going to legislation and saying, listen, I'm your constituent. Please listen to what I'm saying when it comes down to healthcare and when it comes down to African Americans, LGBTQ plus, when it comes down to certain people, we just want to be heard. Like I just want to, if I'm having a pain, I should have the right to have medication to alleviate that pain. Or I shouldn't have to go without medication because I live in a certain area or a certain zip code, or my skin color is a certain color, a certain color.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really, really I found a true passion for. And like I said, I felt like if this is something that I'm going to have to go through, then I'm going to have to, if I'm going to be used as a vessel, then I'm going to continue to do the work that I know that needs to be done. So it's so much that needs to be done as far as the disparities, but that's one thing I'm not going to stop doing until everyone has, universal health care. We just have the basis. It's just so important. And I feel like a lot of us take it for granted. I know that I did for the longest because, again, I didn't really have any issues, but hearing other people and saying, oh, my doctor, I really don't feel like they listen. And I'm like, really? Like, that's a problem. So it's a serious problem, but we have to fix it for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up writing to your legislators, because I think we underestimate the power of political action in that way. So that is amazing that you're paying it forward, and really just taking to the pavement, if you will, and holding our politicians accountable so we can get that, so that access to care can be universal. What are some other ways that we can address this disparities, both within the community and allies as well?
I think being an ally is just what we're doing right now, just sitting down and having conversations and seeing like how we can help each other. Everyone, I feel like an ally is someone that you can always call on and say, hey, this isn't going right. Can you help me, to get the word out? Absolutely. Like I said, having calls and conversations like this, even on a podcast, like you never know who you'll reach, because you can't just be quiet about it. Yeah. So I tell everyone, listen, if you want to be an ally, let's have writing parties. Let's post Facebook lives. Let's use the power of social media. Social media is huge these days. And again, when I use my platform as a beauty queen, sometimes I feel like people don't listen when I show up like this, but you put on a crown and a sash and they're like, oh, okay. Like, I want to hear what you have to say. So that's one way. Again, being an ally is someone that is willing to sit down with someone who looks like me and say, what can I do to help? That makes me feel like, okay, like we're in this together, because we are.
Yeah. So what can we do to help, right? Like, I know you mentioned social media, doing Facebook Lives, but I know that we can help in so many other ways. So I would love to get more from you in that respect.
So what I would say is going to communities and not only being on social media, because to me, I feel like social media is so easy to use, but I say going to the actual communities and just putting the boots to the pavement and saying, hey, have you been to the doctor? Do you have a way to go to the doctor? Is there anything that you're concerned about? I see a lot of elderly people in the marginalized community, even young people who are not really taking healthcare seriously, or they don't have the means to do so. Not saying that you have to pay for everyone to go to the doctor and get scans, but taking the next step to actually taking someone to the doctor is a step forward in the right direction. Literature. Again, when I didn't know anything about RCC, the first thing I did was Google. So I think getting the message out about, again, podcasts like this and letting other people know, like, hey, there's literature you can follow up with, and you can absolutely reach out and figure out what's going on. Because, again, it's a scary spot to be in. And, with having cancer, like, who would have even thought about having cancer? But just the knowledge is, we have to figure out a way to just, like I said, get the boots on the ground and just, pass out information. And again, help those that are really, really in need. I see so many people that, skip doctor's appointments because they don't have rides, or they don't have, adequate amount of insurance, or, just small little things. But I think that's something that I would really like to start doing as well, is saying, hey, I have a mother-in-law that needs to go to the doctor. She doesn't, she doesn't drive or anything like that. So stepping in and being that person's advocate, and it goes with being an advocate when you need someone to go somewhere with you, or you need to have a doctor's appointment. So that way it's not as intimidating as it looks or as it seems. So there's so many ways. Lord, I can sit here and think about nine.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? But I wanted to go back. You had mentioned some of like the ways in which the disparities show up, not having adequate insurance, not having access to transportation. I just wanted you to just take us through how some other ways that you see, I mean, that we know also the disparities show up that end up affecting the outcomes.
Yeah. I feel like there are so many different ways. Again, a lot of people social media is like, to me, the number one. But what do you do when social media is not the only thing that you can do? Like I said, having support groups, that has helped me a lot, because when I had my diagnosis, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to talk to or who I could relate to. Having a support group and going to other people that has gone through this whole diagnosis has really, really, really been helpful. And I mean, you can have a support group within your community, and I know I go to my center in my neighborhood, and I just talk to people, and you just never know who you can meet through this whole thing. I have a lot of people that reach out on Facebook Messenger about, they ask me a lot of questions about, okay, I got this symptom, what do I need to do? And I'm like, okay, I am not a physician, but let me share my story, and maybe I can share resources with you that can help you to go where you need to go. And KCA is always one of the ones that I'm like, okay, go to the website, look at the resources that they have, maybe they can help you out, or here's my doctor's information. Let me share this with you. So pamphlets, I give them out all the time. Here's my story. Here's my journey. If you ever have any questions or comments, let me know. And of course, I'm on there with the crown and the sash. So when people see stuff like that, they're like, oh, okay, she's gone through that. Let me reach out to her. There's so many different ways. And like I said, I am an open book when it comes down to my health and everything that I've gone through. So just don't be afraid to ask people. Like, really, like, if you want to hear more about my journey and hear about my story, reach out to me. I'm here.
No, I mean, it's so important for us to, if we can and we feel comfortable, to be open with our stories, so we can connect with others. Because sometimes, like, getting over that fear of going to the doctor it can be mitigated, maybe is not the right word, but like mitigated by hearing someone else's story, because you're like, oh, if they could get through it, maybe I can too. I wanted to ask also about your spouse and your kids. Like, how are they involved in your advocacy? Are they there alongside you advocating as well? Are they doing it for caregivers and survivors, both?
Absolutely. So my youngest wanted to actually jump on. And I'm like, okay, let mom do this, because he loves being a part of it. And I often ask them how they felt when they figured out. The craziest part with my children, I didn't tell them what was going on until the day I had surgery. And I didn't want them to worry. My oldest is old enough to again Google and all that stuff, but I remember him telling me, Mom, I knew something was wrong, and I knew that you were sick, but I didn't know that it was that. And I didn't want to have that heaviness on me as I went into a surgery. But we often talk about it now. I tell them, we talk about my scars. And my youngest was like, oh, that's when mom was sick, but now she's not sick. She's good. She just has a little bit of kidney, but not a lot like I do. But we do have conversations about it, and I just tell them, like, if you're not feeling well, let mom know, like, let me, because it scares me to know that this came out of nowhere, and I didn't want to say, will this get passed down to my children, or will they be okay? They were very interested when I got home to see the bandages. They thought that they were really, really cool. Again, my husband, he was there 100%. He was there when I first found out. We just kind of, when I first found out and got the diagnosis, we just kind of just sat and, kind of, he let me cry on his shoulder, but he has been to every single doctor's appointment. And when I say every single one, lab, scans, he is right there. And he's like, well, can I go in with her? And I'm like, no, babe, it's radiation. It's just my job. You can't, can't go in, but he's always there. He's at work right now. So, but he is right there when it comes down to like how to be a caregiver with someone that's going through this. And I tell a lot of people, just because the cancer is gone does not mean that I still don't have side effects, and I don't experience certain things. I have anxiety. So it's only amplified, especially when it's time for my scans. When it's time for my scans, I am a nervous wreck. I'm petrified. I'm just worried about, the what ifs. So that's really a hard time. So he's learned how to navigate through that whole waiting process, what we like to call it. And when we have to do that, like we go on dates, we go on walks, just kind of things that help me to not cloud my vision, so to speak. Because I did not even know, because I was like, okay, once I have my surgery, everything's going to be great. Like, it's going to be fine. No. Knowing is only half the battle. But, it's crazy.
Sorry for cutting you off. I was just gonna say, I think that's a thing a lot of survivors go through, because I don't know for you, but I know I've heard from my doctors, and I know survivors who've heard from doctors, it's like, oh, you have surgery, you're fine, you're good, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And then you're like experiencing survivorship, and it's like, I think I was lied to. I think someone lied to me.
Yeah, I tell people, I'm like, if they tell you, oh, once you get the surgery, you're good. Don't listen to them people. Because you talk about, I've never been so worried in my whole entire life. Like, I think I'm more worried now than I was before, because I don't want to hear I'm sorry you have cancer. And my husband, he always says, you got this. Like, I don't know why you're worried. You got this. And I'm like, I got this. And sometimes I'm really unsure, and I feel like the waters are a little murky, but I'm like, okay, if you feel like that I am okay, then I'm going to feel like I'm okay, and we're going to be okay. And I think that is something that I can't take for granted. Like, it is so amazing to have a supportive, spouse, especially a spouse is concerned. Because without him, I don't know if I could have, I don't want to know the outcome, So, yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you about that, because, one thing you say in the post that you wrote for the KCA is that if you didn't advocate for yourself, you don't know where you would be. And I just can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, gosh.
Feeling, rather.
So now you're going to make me a little emotional.
I'm sorry. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's okay.
Okay. So I just think a lot of times, what if I didn't, what if I would have just let things go, and I would have been like, oh, okay, it's just stomach bug. I'm just not really sick. I'm okay. But I'm just, going through the motions. I don't want to know where I would have been if I would have never made that phone call to my doctor's office. I don't want to have that feeling of where this could have gone, because even though it was small and in diameter, the doctor, when he told me, we don't know how long this has been growing, could have been a year, could have been 5. And then it could have been 10 years, who knows? And when I sit and think, I'm like, gosh, like if I would have just been going on with life, and if I would have just, kept saying, oh, it's just a stomach ache, I'm okay, I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna keep going because, oh, it's just stress because I'm gearing up for a competition. Um, I I would have had to have a harder conversation
Yep.
on the line with my kids and my family. And just thinking about that is the scariest thing on this earth, to tell my children that I'm sorry, I might not be here for Christmas, or I'm sorry, I might not be here when you graduate, or I'm sorry, I won't see your kids grow up. And I think about that all the time because, like I tell people, you are your biggest cheerleader. You have to be your biggest advocate because there are a lot of people that have to have those conversations. There are a lot of families that are having that conversation right now. Like, and I pray for those, like I pray every night for people that have to have that conversation, because just me thinking about that conversation makes me emotional. And I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
you're the way.
Yeah, I'm trying not to cry because I'm a mom too, so I like completely like right here with you. So,
Right. Like, and just knowing, like, what if it could have, I've heard stories of them growing like so fast that they've
mhm.
metastasized to your liver and, to anywhere, to your lungs. Um, and to think I was not even in that realm.
Mhm.
I am a woman of faith. I am a woman that is strong in my faith. And I just say, God, like, thank you for giving me the mind, the thank you for giving me the notion to say, no, this ain't right.
Yeah.
I gotta go do something. So that's one thing that I think I do think about. Um, and I don't know why I think about it, but I tell people all the time, like, I don't even want to go there
Yeah.
because looking at my babies, I got so much more to do. I have so
Yep.
much more to advocate for. Like, I want to jump out of a plane. Like, I have a whole bucket list now, and you know what, if I don't get to do what I am destined to do.
Yeah.
So, ah, I
I'm
didn't
sorry
want
for making you emotional. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, but it's such an important conversation because it is
to.
like
Yeah.
a thought that we have.
Uh-huh.
Even though I'm not sure what your subtype is, with
Mm.
my subtype with chromophobe, the prognosis is pretty good, right? And on the grand scheme of things. And
Yeah.
so, I'm very grateful for that. But there's still like
Right.
when you get cancer, when you get the big C, um,
Mm-hmm.
cancer, like you said, is not one size fits all. It's not the
Yeah.
same for everybody, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
know what your body is doing to you. Like you don't
Right.
know what's going to happen, and it can be a really bad outcome. And it's like you do, in a lot of ways, have to prepare yourself for that. And when as someone also who has anxiety, you also cannot help it. Your brain cannot help it. It will do that no matter what. Like it will just you'll be sitting down and you'll be thinking about it, and you're like, okay, great, thank brain. It's just, it's awful,
Like, okay, I need
honestly.
to take a walk. I need to get this out of my head. But yeah, I'm just so, like, I say it all the time. It is just a gratefulness. I am so grateful for not only you guys, but everyone that has poured into me while I'm still on this learning journey. I feel like I'm like a little baby, like still learning the whole process and how to do and how to speak up for others. And I'm still trying to speak up for myself and carry this torch and share my story, because I can remember when I first told everyone, I made a social media post,
Mm-hmm.
and so many people were like, "Oh my God, I'm going through the same thing. I can't believe it. You did this, you did that. How did you do it?" And I tell them, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just knew that I was in for a fight, and I knew that I was not going to lose. And I knew that I was ready to tackle whatever I needed to. There were some days that were worse than others. There were some days I was just like, oh, there's nothing. I think they're lying. I don't have anything going on with me.
Yeah.
But I just, I just knew that I could never give up. I had too much to live for. And everyone that's listening out there, there's so much life that is at the end of the tunnel. There is just you. We are in the fight with you. We know how it feels. I know how it feels to have the rug just ripped from your feet and feel like you're falling 1,000 feet below yourself. Like, that is the scariest moment that I have ever experienced. And I'm a huge person that's scared of spiders. And I would have been like, I'd rather have a spider sitting on my chest than here it is. But just know that there is hope. Modern medicine has come a long way. And I am so forever grateful for every oncologist, every urologist, every nurse, every caregiver, everyone that studies and, learns how to maneuver this whole thing. Like it. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let me quit before I get emotional again.
No, I was going to say, but thank you too, right? Like the community needs more people to speak up and speak out, particularly when it comes to disparities and marginalized groups. But we're almost at time. So I wanted to give you more of an opportunity to talk about things that maybe we didn't touch on. Like, is there anything, like one key message that you want to get out there that maybe we didn't touch on?
Not really. Like I said before, you guys advocate for yourself. You're your biggest advocate. Trust and listen to your body. You know your body better than anyone in this world. So if something is not right or something does not feel right, please reach out to your doctor's office, reach out to your nurse. And if you feel like they're not listening, please go somewhere else. Because again, you're your own voice, and you have to be your biggest cheerleader, and you have to scream it to the mountaintop. And you got it. You got this. Like my husband tell me all the time, you got this, girl. You're fine. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story. It was your energy is just infectious, honestly. And I think you're just, I want actually, what is next? Like, that's the thing. Like, what is next for you before we even wrap up and go? Like, what is next for Mallory?
So I am going to continue to do the work, continue to do my advocacy work. Not only do I advocate for kidney cancers and cancers alike, I am also a mentor. And that is something that I also work on. So that's youth mentorship. I am going to be traveling really soon, doing a lot of traveling with my family just because we didn't get to do it last year. And finishing out my reign as Miss Black International Ambassador. I have to give my title up next year and then I will retire. But I did start a YouTube channel about pageantry, and I will also discuss things like this, talk about my journey with my followers, and just talk about all things pageantry and girl stuff, all that good jazz.
Well, obviously you have to share your YouTube channel so everyone listening can go see you.
Absolutely. So follow my YouTube channel. It is Pageantry According to Mal's, and you'll know it's me because of the hair. It's very big. But please go join my channel. I do a lot of lifestyle vlogging with my family and my boys. Just something really fun, something new going into it. So I love it.
That's great. I'm going to definitely check you out. Although I'm not a pageant girl, but I'm definitely going to check you out and support you. Thank you again for joining us. It was a pleasure. And I hope we can stay connected.
Oh, absolutely. We need to do this again.
Absolutely.